So Happy New Year, January. We're starting a new series. We're calling it All Is Provided. Centered in the camera thing here. This really arose out of a discussion we had earlier or at the end of last year. We were talking about some prosperity classes or some teachings about the tithing classes. And as Reverend Christina and I talked more about it and thought through what exactly the message that we wanted to share around prosperity, abundance, and tithing, we realized that there were some shifts that we wanted to make in terms of what has gone on before. You know, it seems like a lot of the tithing classes or the giving classes or the prosperity classes that Unity has offered, and I'm not wanting to be critical of them because there are some really beautiful teachings. I came up through the 4T process. That was one of the first classes I took when I came to Unity. And the exercises and many of the practices that they advocate are really great for building consciousness. But what we've kind of noticed is that over the years, it feels like much of it has really been focused on demonstration of stuff in material realm, right? And especially with Reverend Christina's real focus on social justice, we're wanting to sort of step into a broader perspective about how we experience prosperity, about what prosperity means to us. And so all this month, we're going to be exploring that not only in our Sunday series, but also we're starting a new class this week. So doing a little plug for that class called Soulful Prosperity. You can register for that online. But it really is wrestling with this idea of how, yes, it's an abundant universe. Yes, there is infinite substance out of which we're able to create lives that are fulfilling and meaningful. And we also live in a material world, and we know that certain resources are limited. We know that, that there is also a capacity for us to have a greater understanding of how our prosperity is intimately and intricately linked to the good of all that is, the good of all people. And so we're wanting to really engage in a conversation and a discussion about how that gets reflected in our own sense of living an abundant life, in our own practice of living from spiritual level of abundance. Kind of, what does all that look like? And it's, you know, it's funny because the more you go back into it, we're thinking, oh, we're breaking new ground in this. This is a new aspect. But as we went back and really start looking through the original teachings of our founders and of some of the, like particularly Eric Butterworth, that's always been a sort of thread that they were weaving in terms of our prosperity stuff. So it was really wonderful to go back and read Spiritual Economics. That's one of the texts that we use in the class as well. But to go back and read Spiritual Economics and Eric Butterworth's sort of take around how this, oh, I don't want to call it a corruption, but that's the only word that's coming to mind. But how we can begin to misuse prosperity principles in a way that really takes us out of living with the flow of abundance. And what Butterworth says is that we're trying to make it work. We're trying to make law work for us, rather than allowing ourselves to align with law and letting our lives sort of reflect that. Does that make sense? I'm looking for nodding heads. Butterworth described it this way. He talks about it as almost like pretend you're learning about gravity and you want to work the laws of gravity, right? When it's really not possible to work the laws of gravity because we're just in the influence of gravity all the time. We can make some crazy plan to try and do something outside the laws of gravity, but probably that's not going to go very well, right? It's really about recognizing that this flow, these spiritual laws that we're creating our lives with, that they're always active with us, and as we can align with those rather than trying to force them to create some kind of demonstration in our lives. Here's the quote I wanted to share from Butterworth. He says, avoid the temptation to try to work the law and thus materialize the process. Get your mind off the idea of making a demonstration in life and center your awareness on a deeper sense of life. The demonstration will begin to make you. Do you get that? So it's letting the law work on us rather than us trying to figure out, okay, if I have this particular thought, if I do these things, if I let go of that, rather than trying to make all that happen, as we align ourselves with a spiritual practice that's consistent, consistently compassionate, consistently loving, consistently positive about the possibilities, consistently open to new things. As we allow that to sort of happen, then the demonstrations are going to happen without us making them, because we're living from a consciousness that's going to welcome that. It magnetizes us for the good that we're going to experience. Yeah? I was trying to think back, early on in my unity sort of unity education. I can remember I was kind of naive about it, but I think that was one of the times in my life when I was most aligned with it. The story I'm going to share is when my first trip back to Unity Village to take some extended classes, right? And I was really busy at work and I hadn't really planned it all that well. I knew I was getting to Kansas City. I knew Unity Village was close to Kansas City. I had a hotel booked, and so I flew in, but I had no clue. I didn't rent a car at that point. I had no clue how I was going to get to Unity Village from downtown Kansas City. I had no clue that it was almost an hour outside of Kansas City, so it's not like right next door. And I ended up, moving into or spending time in Kansas City. And if you've been there, there's a beautiful downtown area, a lot of shopping where I was kind of staying. And it was very near the Founders Church in downtown Kansas City. So I planned on Sunday morning being at that church service, and then I had to figure out some way to get out to Unity Village. I wasn't really worried about it. I just kind of assumed that it was going to happen. And I was excited about being in Kansas City, Unity Village, for the first time. And so as I entered the church, and it's a big church, there are probably 800 or 900 people who are at that service. And I just struck up a conversation and told somebody what I was doing there, and that, I was looking for a way to get out to Unity Village after service. And I was starting to kind of wonder, okay, how is that going to happen? Because I needed to be there to report for a certain time. And lo and behold, at the end of the service, the minister in this congregation of 800 people said, "We got somebody looking for a ride to Unity Village." I was like, that can't be about me. And surely it was. And so then I started figuring out, like, how in the world did he ever, because I'd not met him, I didn't know him at that point. And so Reverend Duke Tupty from the platform lined up a ride for me. There were about 6 people that held up their hands, and the one who was closest to me. So I got a ride to Unity Village without ever having to make it happen. I just kind of had been trusting that it was going to. And as I thought back later and just realized, like, the connections that must have happened within that community. Somebody that I had just been talking to an usher, maybe he knew Reverend Duke, I don't know, but somewhere in that, and I know what that's like, Sunday morning before service, there's a lot going on. And that the word got to Duke Tufty and that he was going to announce that from the platform was like, that was a beautiful moment of grace that I don't think I fully appreciated until after I became a minister myself and realized what that took to be able to have that kind of connection and for that to kind of happen. So it was one of those spaces where, without me specifically having to work to get there, but I was there out of a desire to deepen my spiritual growth and development. That's the whole reason I was in Kansas City to begin with. It was like everything that was in place around me, without having to like run down a checklist, but it was just a reflection of how I was living into my purpose. And so naturally, Spirit would create a way for me to get out to Unity Village. And that's true for all of us. If we're living on purpose and we have some idea about the intentions we're holding, then we become a magnet for those kinds of serendipitous kind of occurrences to really support us in knowing that. And it becomes not so much about, I'm wanting to make this happen. Because here's the other thing. If we're truly aligned with what our purpose is, if we're truly aligned with the flow of Spirit, then even, and I'm going to use a financial example now, like even in spaces where maybe the economy is uncertain and we don't know what's going to happen, we're still in touch with a sense of prosperity, abundance, and gratitude. So that's already a part of our consciousness, yeah? So that we can be, even in times when we don't have money, we can still feel a sense of being wealthy because we recognize that our prosperity is about being in the flow, right? And flip that around, the same thing is true. Someone who is working it from that material kind of perspective, they can have all of the successes and the material growth and fancy houses and big vacations and cars, but they never have a sense of purpose. They never have a sense of fulfillment of purpose. What they're thinking about is the next material thing that they want to get. We all know people like that, right? People who it's like there's this hunger for the next thing with no recognition that, wow, I've already got that facet is already part of my life experience. That's already a part of what I enjoy. And when we can recognize that piece, that's when we really move into that sense of flow and abundance. So that's when that's mostly what I want to work on now is as we start to move into sort of preparation for a meditative experience of that. Many of you I know have already done a burning bowl ceremony, maybe set some intentions for the new year. And what I would invite you to just allow now is, and if you haven't, then you can certainly set some now, just in this moment. Just look inside your heart and pick a particular intention that you're holding for moving forward, whatever it is. And what I would invite you to think about as we prepare for a time of meditation is how that intention that you're holding, how that manifestation, that demonstration that you're wanting to see come into your life, how you've already got that as a part of your experience. You know, maybe if it's something you're wanting to bring in a new relationship, a new love relationship, and maybe it's a romantic relationship. What I'd like you to do is look at how love is already showing up in your life and realize that that's the very energy out of which the love relationship is going to be attracted, right? If you're, and I think this can go even so far as to like imagine that for a homeless person to begin to appreciate the components of that, who's affirming like a home or some kind of steady living space, right? Imagine the quality of that that might already be present in your experience, you know? Even if it's just an appreciation for being on a planet where the sun rises every day and the sun sets every day, and there's this incredible capacity for being supported in this earthly home, right? To be able to have an appreciation for that actually opens the door for more or a greater demonstration of whatever home looks like to come into expression, right? It's not coming out of a, oh God, I don't have a home. Oh, I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me next. If we can connect with some aspect of that which we're wanting to intend to bring into our lives, some aspect of how that's already here, then we're moving into that space of being available. I think it's exactly what the book of Matthew is expressing. This is a quote that always kind of threw me because it sounds like it's unfair, right? It sounds like, oh, the quote, I should read the quote. So this is Matthew 25, verse 29, I believe it is. For all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. At first reading, that always sounded to me like, okay, that's all about those who have are going to get more. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And to a degree, that is exactly what it's talking about, but it's not talking about poor or rich from a material sense. It's talking about consciousness, right? For those who have a conscious awareness of this earth as a beautiful home, and they're living out of an awareness, a consciousness of that, then more will be given. For those who have an awareness of the ways in which prosperity and abundance is already a part of their experience, more will be given. For those who are coming out of a consciousness of there is never enough, out of a consciousness, I'm afraid of how I'm going to move forward and experience life fully. For those who have not, right, if they're coming from that lack consciousness, then even that bit that they have will be taken away because the fear only increases. Kind of goes back to the song that the Scales just sang for us about it's the thoughts that we hold. If we're coming out of an awareness of how abundance and prosperity is already available to us, that we're already experiencing, more will be given. If we're coming out of an awareness of how it's lacking, of how we don't have it, then even that little bit that we have will be taken away, and the fear that we hold will increase to a degree that will never be satisfied. Clear? So back to the exercise for meditation. I'd like you to think about some intention that you're holding for next year. And as we move through this meditation, to just let Spirit reveal to you how the characteristics of that, the quality of that that you're holding will come into your life more fully, is already a part of your experience. Make sense? Okay, so I'm going to invite the scales to prepare us now to be in that flow of good, in that receptivity, to being more aware of the blessings that we're already experiencing, as they sing us into a space and a consciousness that we can be more receptive.
Let there be less of me. Let there be more of you. Less of the human, more of the divine. Less that belongs to me, more that is thine. More of God's nature, and less that is mine.
So as we move into this time of meditation, this availability to Spirit's direction and guidance, I invite you to call to mind an intention that you're holding for the coming year. And whatever that is, about relationship, about wholeness, about financial good, whatever area it is, I would invite you to also begin to allow Spirit to reveal to you how some aspect of that intention is already available to you. It's in these quiet moments of reflection that we are most receptive to Spirit's direction. We are most receptive to the mystical aspect of Spirit bringing into fruition whatever we might intend. It's here that we can know that truly all is provided. That whatever wisdom or inspiration might be necessary to bring a divine idea into expression, that wisdom, that inspiration, that guidance, that knowing dwells within you. Whatever choices you might be able to make or might be needing to make to bring this intention into fuller expression, everything that's needed for you to be able to make an informed and wise choice that will bring forth your highest good, everything that's required for that shift to happen is within you. It's in these moments of reflection when we remember most clearly that we can never be apart from that infinite source of all good. And that as we allow it, as we align with it, it actually becomes a greater part of our experience. So now as we prepare to rest in just a brief moment of silence, I simply invite you to allow yourself to feel what it is to be magnetized for greater good to come into your life. The intention you hold becomes a magnetizing force, attracting everything required for its demonstration to come into your life. No need to work the law as we allow the law to work within us. Know this truth now as we rest in a moment of silence. Gently now, as we begin to return our attention to the sights or the sounds around us, I would invite you to join me in an affirmation. You can hold it silently in mind and heart, or you can speak it aloud. It's one that I would invite you to use often. All is provided. Let's do that 3 times together. All is provided. All is provided. All is provided. Thank you, God, for an increasingly powerful awareness of the many ways in which we are supported to live our deepest truth and to experience our greatest good. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If Unity's message of positive spiritual living resonates with you, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date on other lessons as we post them. Also, if you're able to support us financially in the work that we do in the world, please check below for contact information. You can visit our website, find more about what programming we offer, as well as how to give. Blessings.